All his life, he was a slave. He was raised in an environment that only valued power and cunning. And if you couldn't meet the standard, you were discarded and taken advantage of. Anakin came from a wealthy family. From Alderaan, Anakin's mother was a high-ranking Sith. And his father was a high-ranking Sith too. There were only 4 Sith in the galaxy left. Anakin's mother was heavily pregnant with him, so it was too dangerous to travel to Coruscant. She gave birth to him in secret. They did not want the Jedi to find out. Her face was flushed and sweaty. The minutes felt like hours as she pushed Anakin from her womb. Almost there, one more push, one more push. The doctor gently wiped off the baby with a warm rag, before wrapping him up in a blue blanket that matched his big blue eyes and black hair. That's the nurse who handed over the baby to his mother, Nyla. The midwife was a tall, kind-faced woman with long dark hair pulled back into a braid. Her wrinkled brow gave her an air of sadness, but she waved cheerfully as they left. What name should we give our son? Do you think Anakin Vitiate is a good name? Yes, that's a great name, Ravage replied. Okay, we will name him Anakin Vitiate. A smile broke out on Nyla's face, and she held the child closer to her heart. They were just enjoying the family moment right now. The newborn son was just born, so they wanted to celebrate it, but before they could, they heard explosions. Nyla's heart started beating harder. They could hear footsteps approaching closer and closer. The earring sound of 2 people entering the room could be heard. Ravage was on guard. They could hear lightsabers igniting, and one of the Jedi spoke. At the order of the Republic, you are under arrest. How did they find us? The Jedi were fast on our trail, and we should have hidden better. Ravage thought, but he broke out it, no matter Jedi. The Jedi had come to arrest them. The Jedi were dressed in dark garments, the black masks hiding their faces from the world. The baby was wrapped in a blue blanket, wiggling about, looking at the world around it, and not afraid to make a fuss. The Jedi are dressed in long grey robes, their faces hidden by a hood. Their weapons glow blue and green. I never give in to Jedi scum, Ravage said in a cold tone. I have to protect my family. Ravage ignites his lightsaber rage, fueling his passion to do so. He will not let them take away what is left of his family. As he ran towards the first Jedi, it was a night. He was unprepared for the onslaught of the mighty Sith Lord. Ravage managed to cut off one of the Jedi's arms clean, then swung around and cleaved his head in 2 with one swipe from his crimson saber. The second Jedi's eyes widened as his companion lay slain. With a scream, he readied the lightsaber to meet his foe, but the Sith Lord's speed was too fast, and their blades crackled in a flurry of sparks around them. The Jedi fought back with all his might, sinews straining as he sought out Ravage's weak spot. Suddenly, his arm gave out and Ravage seized his chance, slamming the lightsaber against his arm with force finality. Dazed from the blow, the Jedi stumbled back in retreat, only to be cut off by Ravage's relentless strikes. He fought on bravely, defending himself until exhaustion took its toll, and Ravage delivered a crushing diagonal slash that severed his legs at the knees. Blood pooled beneath him, yet still he clung onto life until Ravage finished him off with a saber throw that pierced his skull. The Jedi slumped lifelessly to the ground as Ravage stood over him victorious. Ravage realized the Senate had been distracted long enough for someone to find his family. He quickly thought it was impossible. He grabbed his wife and baby, determined to make it to the escape pod before more Jedi arrived. With seconds remaining until they'd be discovered, Ravage shoved the baby in the escape pod, with a sense of dread growing within him. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a cold and menacing voice echoed behind him. It seems I have failed, Sidious. Ravage spat venomously. I should have known you were responsible for this. Ravage action had caught the attention of the Jedi, confirming Sidious's suspicions that he needed to be taken out in case he was captured and interrogated for information about the Sith Order. You fool, Sidious roared, already igniting his lightsaber. It was you who set this up. You gave away our location to the Jedi. With an evil grin spreading across his face, Sidious continued coldly. And now is your perfect chance to get an apprentice, Ravage said with hate. I sense much power in your son. He will make a formidable Sith in my plans to take over the galaxy, said Sidious with a grin. There was no more time for talking. With one final snarl, Sidious had made his intentions clear. Ravage snarled as he ignited his lightsaber, rage flowing through him like a river. His hatred for Palpatine was so great that he knew he must fight this battle to the death. He had no fear of death, but only wanted to exact revenge on the traitorous Sith Lord. Palpatine laughed as he charged across the room at Ravage with such speed and agility that Ravage could barely keep up with his attacks. The lightsabers crackled and clashed in a wild fury of energy as Palpatine said, "You fool, your feeble skills are nothing compared to all the powers of the dark side," said Sidious while laughing at Ravage, Sidious arrogantly believing himself to be superior. In a desperate attempt to survive, Ravage summoned all his dark powers and hatred into one massive force blast attack. With a furious war cry, he unleashed a blast that sent Palpatine flying across the room. Enraged at being attacked, Palpatine launched himself again at Ravage, slashing and striking furiously, until he landed a decisive hit in Ravage's heart, ending his life instantly. The body of Ravage slumped lifelessly onto the ground as Palpatine stood over it triumphantly. He slammed his foot down on the lifeless body of his former Sith comrade, a vile grin spreading across his face. His joy was short-lived, however, when he noticed that Nyla wasn't on the bed anymore. He saw her frantically stuffing Anakin into an escape pod before pressing the launch button. The small vessel shot away from the ship in Sidious's grasp as he watched it helplessly. Fury burned in his eyes as he spun to face the woman responsible for stealing away his potential apprentice. Striding forward, Sidious snarled at Nyla, "You foolish woman. You chose to release your son instead of allowing me to train him as a powerful Sith. But you are no longer worthy to teach anyone. You have betrayed everything we stand for." With an outraged roar, Sidious unleashed a cascade of force lightning that engulfed Nyla's form. The inside slowly cooked her alive. She uttered her last words, "There is no death, there is only the Force," before succumbing to death's embrace. Palpatine smiled cruelly at what he believed to be victory, but then noticed her body began to drift apart like smoke and dissipate into nothingness. He kicked the cloth robes which were once draped around her frame, realizing that she had escaped even death. Sidious let out an ear-splitting roar that reverberated around the ship. His venomous fury seemed to fill every nook and cranny, leaving no escape from its icy presence. He bellowed that he had to find a new apprentice, as if it was unacceptable for anyone to dare disobey him. The air stilled in shock as the echo of his voice faded away. He wanted his apprentice to be a quiet, powerful man, so he continued his search for a young apprentice. The group of pirates descended upon the wreckage, starfighters blazing as they closed in. They found an escape pod floating amidst the debris and halted on board. As one of the pirates opened port as they saw a newborn baby boy lying inside, his white eyes blinking up at them. "Hey boss," one of the pirates said. "We've got ourselves a prize." He turned to the others, a glint in his eye. "Don't you see? We have riches here. The Hutts on Tatooine would be willing to pay top cred for a child like this. I hear Jabba's building a new wing on his palace. He'll need workers for the construction and slaves for it when it's finished. That arena will bring in a huge prize pool for the winner. No wonder he needs more help." He tugged on his beard, plotting how best to take advantage of their newfound treasure. "Let's take him to Gardella Hut. They can take it from there." The pirate ship descended onto the desert planet of Tatooine, its hull creaking and groaning as it broke through the twilight. The captain stepped off the ramp onto the unfamiliar sand, scanning his surroundings for any sign of the contact, as they saw one of Gardella's contacts, a shady figure with an eye patch and scuffed boots. "How much for the kid?" the captain asked gruffly. After some haggling, they agreed on 85,000 credits, and handed over Anakin to the contact. With that single transaction, the fate of the entire galaxy was sealed. As a quick note, Anakin will be raised by Shmai, who has a daughter. Her name was Analia Anakin, and Analia grew up. She was his best friend, and it can never be regarded as. It was a quite distant child who never spoke a lot, but when he did, it was for a reason. He didn't care much about people. The only person he cared about was Analia. As their friendship grew stronger, their ties became inseparable. So at the tender age of 5, both of the kids were playing catch me if you can. As they were laughing and running away from each other, Analia asked, "Why are you being so mean, Anakin?" But she was pouting. Anakin could not hold his laughter. Ha laugh even harder, knowing that he really got to her as they kept running. Anakin turned towards an alleyway and lose her, but it was a dead end. She finally caught up to him. "It's nowhere to run," Analia taunted. "Well, I guess you caught me," Anakin said. She giggled. "Aninka," he said with a sigh. "You know I'm the best at this game. You can never run away from me." Of course, as Aninka started to scowl to himself about her cocky attitude, he said only one word in response. "Wanna bet?" They exchanged heated words with each other, neither budging in their stance. That was until they heard a group of people pass by them, proclaiming excitedly, "Hey, did you find that artifact on Korriban?" One of them replied, "Of course. I found it in the former Sith Emperor chambers." "What is it?" "Well, you have to come and take a look. Trust me, it will be worth your time." Anakin was intrigued by the statement and his own curiosity of what lied beyond their world. He had always felt like he belonged somewhere else, destiny guiding him towards something greater. His mind full of possibilities, he spoke up and announced, "Hey, I'm going to follow those men." Analia swung her head around quickly upon hearing this, eyes wide with fear. She sternly remarked, "Wait, are you insane? If we get caught, you don't know what will happen to us. Who said you were coming with me? I'm only telling you this for your safety. You don't have to come if you don't want to." Anakin simply looked back at her with determined eyes and explained, "I can't guarantee my safety. I just have a good feeling about what they possess, and I want to see it for myself." Analia pondered this. Should she go with him or tell him not to go? But regardless of her fear of getting caught, Anakin was her friend and she would stick by him no matter what. So reluctantly she agreed and uttered, Okay, I'll follow you, but be quiet." As if in a trance, they tiptoed through the streets, eventually catching up to the group of men who took them to an abandoned building. I held my hand up in the air to command silence, and all eyes in the room turned towards me. I motioned for them to hand their blasters to my guard nearby, just in case anything went wrong. The buyers slowly relinquished their weapons, and I nodded with satisfaction. "Now that we have taken precautions," I began, "I'd like to tell you a story of where this item came from and who it belonged to." A hush had descended on the room as if they had been expecting this announcement, and I continued. "Long ago, during the days of the Old Republic, there was a powerful Sith Lord who wielded an item of great power and destruction. A murmur of interest ran through the crowd, and I smiled a little at their response. I'm sure you can understand why I am concerned about letting you take this item, I said sternly. That is why I need each of you to sign a contract releasing myself from any responsibility, should something happen as a result of this object's power. The men quickly signed the papers before me, eager to get started with the bidding war that lay ahead. I held up my hand again to quiet them down before beginning. Let us start at 80,000 credits, I said slowly. One of the men stated he had 120,000 credits waiting for him to spend. The second man then said he could give 300,000 credits, while the third man topped that by saying 800,000 credits was his offer. This made one of the earlier bidders angry, and he shouted out 1.2 million credits, which began a high-stakes bidding war between all three parties. No one wanted to be outdone by anyone else. Eventually, the bid rose until it reached 15 million credits, with the second man offering 18 million, when no one else would go higher. To nobody's surprise, he emerged as our winner and acquired the lethal item. Anakin contemplated his next move. He needed to retrieve the weapon if he was going to become what destiny had planned for him. He looked over at his friend and said, I have a big favor to ask of you. Could you create a diversion for me so I can sneak in there, grab the box, and get out without being noticed? I know it is dangerous, but I promise to set up a distraction and make sure that you can make your escape safely if they follow you. His friend was shocked. What are you thinking, Anakin? We can't steal this thing. We don't even know what it is. What happens if they catch us? We'll be in big trouble. Why would you risk this? Anakin replied calmly, Don't worry, I have a plan. Just follow my instructions carefully and everything will be fine. This is what I want you to do. Go up to those guards and tell them that you're lost. Then make a scene. While they are busy trying to figure out what's going on, I'm going to sneak to the box and take it with me. When I'm done, I'll set up a distraction and you will run. Can I count on you? His friend reluctantly agreed, and Anakin knew he made the right choice. With one last look back at his friend, Anakin silently proceeded with his plan. Analia fell to the ground. Panic-stricken, she gasped, Where am I? The guard scoffed in response, taking a step back. How the hell did you get in here? This is a restricted area. Analia nervously replied, One of your men led me and said that if I followed him, I would get some money. The guard shook his head. No, I didn't let this girl in, one of the guards said with an angry tone. You lied, his voice cold and threatening. Analia screamed as she stumbled backwards. The guard stepped forward and shouted, Cut that out. We got a business transaction here, and you're interrupting it. As Anakin surveyed the room, his gaze settled on a peculiar box with an intricate design. But unless he picked it up, he wouldn't be able to escape. Then he noticed a blaster near the same box. Quickly making his decision, he reached out and grabbed the blaster. Oh yes, he murmured quietly under his breath. Now he had what he needed to get out of here and rescue Analia too. He scanned the room for any signs of help when one of the guards caught his attention, isolated alone from the rest. Anakin decided to use him as a distraction, and silently snuck behind him. Taking advantage of the guard's distraction, Anakin swiftly brought down his knife to the man's neck. Blood began spurting out profusely, and Anakin quickly caught the dying guard's body before it could hit the ground, and threw it into the center of the room, catching all of the other guards' attention. We got a man down here, yelled one of them in alarm. In an instant, Anakin aimed his blaster at them and fired off shots, extinguishing all lights in the room, so it was completely dark by now. He used this moment to sneak closer to Analia while holding her close. The room's attention shifted to Anakin, his presence unannounced and unwelcome. He held the guard in a chokehold, the hostage's terrified gaze fixated on the group. Hey brat, one of them growled, what are you doing here? For your information, it doesn't matter now what I'm doing here. What I can tell you is I have disarmed all of you. I have this guard as a hostage, so if you don't let us go, I'll kill the guard and I'll kill all of you. The buyer and seller exchanged glances with uncertainty. They didn't really know that he had stolen the artifact before they could sell it. Like most criminals, they wanted to get their business done as fast as possible, and deal with the interlopers later. The leader of the pack said coolly, We will let you go, but we don't want to see you again. Do we have an agreement? Yes, Anakin responded sharply, I agree. He forced the guard out onto the street and they began walking away from the settlement. An hour after, Anakin finally felt safe enough to ask questions. What is this artifact they were talking about? He demanded, menacingly staring at his captive. Calm down, kid, the guard begged desperately. It's an ancient lightsaber from the Old Republic. You mean those swords that the Jedi uses? It seems your usefulness has come to an end, as Anakin stated coldly. With that he raised his blaster and executed guard right there, and then he showed no mercy, the cold look in his eyes. The old Anakin was dead. This is Anakin vitiate. Analia shivered as anger filled her body. She couldn't believe what Anakin had just done, and how emotionless he seemed. Why did you kill him? She asked, tears filling her eyes. Anakin turned to face her, his cold gaze piercing through her soul. If I didn't do it, he would have sent more men after us. In this world the strongest survive and the weak perish. Need I remind you of that? He paused for a moment to let his words sink in. You won't tell anyone about this, understand? Analia was terrified by what Anakin had become. He was no longer the sweet boy she had once knew. He had become a ruthless killer, willing to do anything to get off the planet. As she nodded her agreement, Anakin motioned towards the .straight. Let's go, he said in a cold voice. Anakin realized that she had to get home. We should probably get back, she said. Fine with me, I'm kind of hungry, Anakin replied. They ran back home. Once he hit the door, he tripped over his feet and fell onto the floor. Luckily, he didn't open the box and smash it into a million pieces. When he walked in, his mother was there. Where have you been? You were supposed to come straight home after your game, she scolded. I know. We were playing hide and seek for a really long time, and we kinda lost track of time. I hope you'll learn from this experience. Go wash up for dinner right now, said Miss Shim sternly. As Anakin first went to his room, over his bed, he placed the box under his bed, hiding it. He didn't want to look at it just yet. First, he went downstairs to the sink to wash the blood off his clothes. He was thinking he had to play the nice child for now, until he is ready to put his plan into action. Anakin sat beside him, as her mother brought the food to the table. Shmai placed a plate in front of him with purple stew, that had been enriched by the scent of what Anakin remembered was thyme and angelica. He dug in, and Anakin took her first bite. As Anakin stared at Anakin, she said to herself, "Oh, Anakin, what's happened to you?" Their mother kept on the conversation about generic stuff about how life was at the end of dinner. Yes, Mom, I know you are working at Watto's shop tomorrow later than normal. Don't worry, we will be fine here together. We embraced each other quickly, and watched as they went upstairs slowly. There is a possibility we won't see them again after tomorrow. Walked towards the stairs. He went up the stairs, took a right, went forward, and they came to his door. In his mind, he fought now or nothing. He opened his door. He went into the room. He closed the door after him. He made sure he locked it before he did anything else. He went over to his bed, knelt down, and dragged out the box underneath the bed. It was an old-looking box with a brownish gold color that belonged to some kind of lavish box. Anakin opened the box. In his hand the lightsaber had a pure black hilt, and there were silver spots on the corners of the lightsabers, but overall, the lightsaber was a mix of gold, black, and silver. It was quite a nice design if I do say so myself, Anakin said to himself. This lightsaber really looks old. As he looked more, he turned it around, expecting more parts of the lightsaber, but he noticed a button. He felt drawn to it, like it was calling him to press it, and he thought there was only one way to find out what this thing really is. As he activated the Crimson Blade, Anakin was impressed by the color of the saber. Its crimson blade showed off more than just its sharpness and beauty, as it reflected light from everything in its path. Anakin waved it around by putting his index finger through the trigger loop, while holding onto each handle on either side of the loop. With his thumb and pinky finger, the blade glided easily through the air, showing that this weapon would be powerful yet balanced for such a dangerous weapon as a lightsaber. A little while later Anakin heard a voice. It seems that someone has found my lightsaber. May you introduce yourself, said the strange man. Anakin was thinking in his mind. Should I tell him my name is Anakin concluded. He had no reason not to tell his name, as he said. My name is Anakin Vitiate. Is that so? As the strange man stated. So, as the man stated. So I introduced myself. So who are you? Anakin asked curiously. Well, I go by many names, Tenebrae Valkorion Vitiate, but most known as the Sith Emperor, he thought to himself. He shares my last name. Does that mean I'm related to this old Sith Lord? Almost like Valkorion heard what he was thinking. Yes, I am your ancestor, he replied. And you have the blood of the Sith Emperor flowing from your veins, and Anakin couldn't know what to think. On the other hand, he was shocked and proud at the same time. You couldn't put your finger on it, but eventually, he came to his conclusion. It was true. So, Anakin, how long have I been gone? Valkorion, well, I would say roughly around 3,000 years or something like that. It's been that long, he said in a cold tone. Most people have forgotten you. It's a shame, but it's also a good thing. Making it much easier is what I have planned for you. What do you mean? Anakin asked curiously. I will train you, my descendant. I'll teach you everything I know, but I'll make a statement to you before you get this over your head, and I want you to take these words to heart. A man can have anything if he is willing to sacrifice. With your birth comes a solemn vow. You will have nothing. Your privilege is the dirt. In the darkness, only ambition will guide you. The oath you swear and the promises you make are yours alone. Your freedom will depend on the wars you wage. Your birthright is the loss you suffer. Your entitlement is the pain you endure. And when darkness finds you, you will face it alone. Do you understand these words, my descendant? Yes, I understand. We will begin. First I must offer you this. Do you want to be my apprentice to learn the ways of the Sith Emperor? But when you accept this, there is no going back. So do you accept being trained in the ways of the Force? Yes, my master, Anakin said with determination in his eyes.